Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Unique Peace. I am your host, Janice Twerberg, the Quiet Healer. I am a Reiki Master Teacher and Medium Intuitive here on Long Island. And today I'm excited to have Jacqueline Hartmann on with me. She is a yogi and an akashic reader, and she's going to talk to us about what brings her peace today. So join me in welcoming Jacqueline. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you this lovely morning?
I'm doing well, taking a breath to get grounded after some technological issues, but
Okay.
happy it worked out. So happy to chat with you today.
Wonderful. So you do quite a lot in the spiritual world. You're a yogi master, you're a Reiki master as well, you're an Akashic reader. You have all of that going on. Kind of tell us your story and how you got there.
Yeah, thank you. It's a bit of a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. Yeah, my journey started back in, I want to say 2014-ish, and yoga was honestly my gateway into my spiritual awakening, or I really like to call it a spiritual remembrance, because we're just remembering what's true within. And basically, I came home from college and was just a broken shell of a human being. My inner light was so dimmed and so low that my self-worth was non-existent. My self-love was non-existent. And I was so depressed. I could barely leave my room. And my beautiful mother said, Jack, just come to yoga with me. Just come to yoga with me. And I was like, I can't. Like, I really couldn't.
So you were very resistant in the beginning.
So resistant, so resistant. And she was like, just come. And if you hate it, you never have to go back, but just give it one class. And I was like, okay. So we went to this sweet studio that was just a couple blocks from my house. And I struggled through the poses, absolutely, especially the hip openers, right? Because I had so much stuffed in there.
Yeah.
But in that first Shavasana, the tears just streamed down my face uncontrollably. And it honestly felt like the first time my body could just exhale in years. And from that first release, that first practice cracked open, I was hooked. And I was like, wow, there's really something to this. So I continued with the practice just as a student. I mean, I'm a forever student. I think we all are.
We all are, definitely. You never stop learning, even as a Reiki master. I will take classes with, I don't know if you're familiar with Franz Stein, but I'll take classes with him. I'll take CE classes with my own master. So we all have to be forever students. I totally agree with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So after I think about a year of practicing, my intuition was like, this practice helped me so much that I want to become a teacher. And if I could just help one other person through this beautiful practice, then mission accomplished, right? So I started teaching in 2015, and I've been teaching ever since. And the practice of yoga allowed me to deepen my meditation practice, which eventually led me to Reiki, which eventually led me to the Akashic records. So it just kind of snowballed from there.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what do obviously yoga is your first love and what you really come into on a daily. So when the other two, how do you bring them together into your practice, or are they like separate but enhanced?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And it's kind of both. When I am working with clients, I work with clients one-on-one. Sometimes we'll do all of the above, right? Like we'll move through a practice to get into the body, and then we'll bring in some Reiki during the more restorative poses or Shavasana. And then we'll open up the Akashic records once we're in that more grounded, open state, and we'll see what wants to come through. So I like to just kind of check in with each individual person and see what would serve them best at this time. So I either combine them or I let them be their own separate entity, just depending.
Beautiful. I do a very similar thing. So it's nice to hear that I'm not the only one doing that.
Yeah, because everyone's so unique, right? So what works for one person is not going to work for another. And that's the beautiful part of this work is like you meet the person on a soul level. How can I serve you right now in this moment? And what
Meeting them where they're at and
exactly.
bringing them up is more important than anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and so that brings you a lot of peace, but what really brings you peace? When you're looking for after a stressful day, because let's be honest, we all have stressful days, even if we work in a
Oh,
peaceful environment.
yeah.
What brings you peace at the end of the day?
Yeah. Honestly, when I was sitting with this question, the first thing that came through was just silence and solitude. And
Mm,
when I am in those moments of silence and solitude, I can really come back home to that soul self, right? The truest, most inherent self within can be found always, whether you're in a crowded space or you're at home. But I find when you're in those moments of silence and solitude, you can really feel the essence of your soul so that you can then embody it in those crazier times, in those busier
yeah.
times. So, what really brings me peace is aligning with that soul self, my true self, beyond the conditioning of the mind, beyond the limitations of the ego. And I find the most resonance there in times of silence, especially in nature. But silence and solitude, I think, brings me the most peace.
So when you're finding silence and solitude in nature,
Mm.
where's your favorite place to go?
Oh, the beach. I am definitely a beach girl. Just sitting on the sand and the ocean herself. I mean, Mama Ocean is the perfect example of divine feminine energy. She is either really soft and gentle and nurturing or really wild and
Yes.
aggressive, right? And just being able to see the vastness of the ocean and let that be a reminder of the vastness that is within our own being, that expansive soul, always brings me back home. And it allows the things that we worry about on a human level to just kind of dissipate a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
when we're looking at a gorgeous nature landscape, it's like, well, they don't have to worry about that text message so much, or like that thing that someone said last week, right?
Right. Right. What I find beautiful is I grew up in a mountainous area. I grew up in Colorado, and I'm a transplant here on Long Island. And what the ocean does is, like you said, she can be really, really calm, or she can be really, really wild, but she reminds us of the ebb and flow of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what a beautiful reminder, right? Because so many of us, myself included, when we're in the ebb, when the waters are receding back, we tend to resist that of like,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, something's wrong. I'm not in flow. Things are not moving. But we have to have those ebbs in order to have the flows.
absolutely.
I work in birth work as well as a birth doula. And if we just think about the way that a baby comes into the world, the baby pulls back. And then
Yeah,
we
it was like, wait, I changed my mind.
yeah, and then we wait for the contraction, right, to feel the flow, and then baby pulls back, and then we get the flow, and then eventually this beautiful new life is born and created. And that can be said for our own journey, not even talking about birthing a baby, but birthing a creation, birthing an offering, birthing the next stage of your journey.
Journey.
We have to have the ebb in order to have the flow.
Beautiful. I love that. I totally love how that correlates. So, as a birth doula
Mhm.
and helping women deliver, how do you bring them peace? I mean, this is as someone who my son's a preemie. Well, he was a preemie. He's 16 years old now. But that's a really stressful experience. Just hands down, preemie or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful question. And it all, for me, even as you say that, it comes down to mindset. And to return to peace in something like birth is to return to your power and to remember that your body knows exactly what it's doing to birth this baby. And unfortunately, especially in Western society, fear has been associated with birth forever. Well,
Forever.
not forever, but like with Hollywood movies and horrible stories that people like to tell pregnant women, which is like, stop doing that.
Stop doing that.
Stop telling horrible stories to a pregnant woman. They don't want to hear it. Trust me.
No, they don't.
No. So to return to the peace is just returning to that innate sense within that trusts your body, that trusts this baby, that trusts whatever the journey may look like, whether it's exactly what you had planned or it's nothing like you had planned, right? But just remembering that innate sense within of like, I've got this, baby's got this, they're on their own journey, just like I'm on my own journey. Let's work together to, have a beautiful experience regardless of what it looks like. So bringing them back to their breath, reminding them to soften their face, right? Like if they're clenching, it's like, let's soften by softening your face, unclenching your jaw, right? All these little physical movements. Come back to your breath, come back to your mantras. I've got this. My body knows how to birth this baby. So it's little tweaks to just bring them back, just like meditation, right? Come back.
Yeah. That's a difficult thing for a lot of people in meditation is come back. And I just let people, when I guide people through meditation, is, okay, you're going to have thoughts come in, honor them. Yeah, I acknowledge you, and let them go out.
Absolutely.
Come in. Don't, because when you focus on them, that's when you lose where you're supposed to be in meditation. So absolutely agree with just come back.
Yeah. And I think that's a common misconception, is that meditation is about completely silencing the mind.
Doesn't happen.
And it's not the goal, right? It's never going to happen. Probably never going to happen. So it's just noticing the thought. And instead of attaching and going along with the story, it's, okay, I'm noticing you thought. I'm going to come back to my breath. Begin again.
Absolutely agree with that. Aside from a birthing experience, how else do you bring people peace? How do you bring that in and help others find that peace?
Yeah, I love that question. And it actually, like, I can feel my heart open even to that question, because I feel that my service in this world, at least in this season of life, is supporting people, especially women, in getting out of their heads and into their hearts to find that peace. Because more often than not, our head is a really busy place, and we're jumping from thought to thought, and we're worrying about the future,
Absolutely.
regretting what happened in the past. But peace is found in the present. So if we can just get out of the head and into the heart, then we can soften into the present moment, and therefore soften into our own peace. So I would say I support people in that, in finding ways for them to get out of their head and into their heart, whether that is meditation, whether that is a silent walk in nature without your phone, whether that is, moving and breathing on your mat, journaling, whatever it is, working in the akasha, working with reiki, all these beautiful modalities. But at the end of the day, you are your own healer, and you have to make that journey from head to heart. I can show you the way, I can offer you suggestions, but at the end of the day, you have to make that journey from head to heart.
We're merely guides.
Exactly.
Now, in your experience, your own personal experience coming into peace, coming from that broken shell of a college student coming home going, what just happened here?
Yeah.
And to where you are now and helping others, what do you find is the biggest resistance to coming back and being in a peaceful state? Just in general, or if there's a specific story of where you can share with us. Obviously, names and everything don't have to be said, but what is that biggest challenge and what is the biggest success?
Yeah. The biggest challenge for me is that monkey mind. And when I identify too much with my ego, with my small self. And this is not to shame the ego. We love the ego. We need her. That's how we have a personality and we move through this world safely. But the ego can also really like to keep us safe and therefore keep us small. So one of my biggest struggles is identifying too much with that ego. And then I get stuck in comparison or being afraid to shine my light, or keeping myself quote unquote safe by not going past my comfort zones, right? And then we get caught up in the stories of like, oh, well, what if this doesn't happen? And what if this doesn't happen? And I should have done that 2 years ago. And like that immediately.
And everyone can identify with these. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that immediately takes me out of peace. So the success, as you asked, is, again, it all comes back to the soul for me. When I am getting stuck in the ego of like, shoulda, coulda, woulda, I know, and I can call myself out most times, right? I'm human. So I definitely have bad days for sure. But the success of finding my peace is like, oh, and I'll even speak to that part of myself. I'm like, oh, Jack, you're doing that thing again where you're jumping 10 years into the future, but feel your feet on the earth right here, right now. And in this moment, right here, right now, you are at peace. You are safe. You are okay. So the biggest struggle is identifying too much with the ego. And the way I get back into peace is coming back home to the soul. Because our soul is nothing ethereal outside of us that we have to like grasp and educate ourselves to. It's actually stripping all of that away and just coming home to that deepest part of self that is always at peace. So it's just remembering that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, there is, Akashic records, I will admit, is something a little confusing to me.
Yeah.
However, I know a lot of people who do it. Now, when you're reading, do you find that people find a sense of peace of kind of like, okay, this is what your contract is this time, and you kind of like guide them to remember it? Do you find that helps with finding peace?
Yeah. And I totally agree that the Akashic records can seem really super out there. And so the way that I like to describe it is just your Akashic record is your soul's record. So it's diving into the information from your soul from past, present, and future timelines. And every Akashic record reader is going to have a different relationship with the Akashic records. And I find that mine is very feminine and very soft. Whereas a dear friend and mentor of mine, her relationship to the Akasha is very masculine and very direct, right? And so when I am in an Akashic reading with another, I find that who presents the strongest is their higher self. And when you can receive information from your higher self, it's going to come through with so much love and grace and compassion. Like there may be direct guidance, absolutely, but it's coming with so much love. And so I find that alone, just to be seen where you are on your path, to be reflected back of like, I see you, I hear you. This is what your beautiful soul has to offer you. It can definitely bring peace, or just understanding, which can bring peace.
Which can bring peace, yeah. Sometimes it's just understanding, because that monkey mind, it can whip us into a tizzy.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about doing Akashic readings, doing intuitive readings, is it allows us to bypass that ego mind, that the mind that's going to take us all over the place. Right. And it's like receiving this direct line of communication from your soul, which is going to be filled with so much love and support. It always feels very nurturing.
Yes, that's also messages that we deliver as intuitives and mediums. So that it's that direct connection. So another question I love to ask is, in your toolbox, if someone came to you and they're just having one of those days and they don't want to do yoga and they don't want this and they don't want that, but they want to find some peace or relaxation, or at least something to bring them back to center, what's in your everyday toolbox that you can offer them? Say, try this.
Yeah. Well, again, first thing that comes to mind is like, leave your phone inside and go outside on the earth. Get your bare feet on the earth for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever you can muster. Just get your feet on the earth to ground with her, to allow her to just bring you back to center, especially if you're having one of those days where you're just overwhelmed, you're stressed, you can't even get onto your mat. Go outside, 2 minutes, just take some deep breaths. So that would be my first suggestion. But let's say you can't get outside, or it's freezing cold and you don't want to be outside on the earth, because in New York,
freezing cold.
Yeah, I get it. So my suggestion would be nothing outside of yourself, but put your hand on your heart, close your eyes, and just take 3 deep breaths. Inhale through your nose, exhale out of your mouth, and just soften. There's nothing you need to do. There's nothing you need to fix. There's nothing you need to change in that moment. Can you just meet yourself where you are, hand on heart, take a couple deep breaths, and just come back to center. And see how you feel from there.
That's beautiful guidance. Thank you. So, is there anything that you would like to share or tell people about finding peace from your story? I mean, you started off in yoga, but what was like the key? What do you think helped open you up when you were doing those hips exercises and that release? Why do you think that helped?
Mm. Well, my advice would be just a gentle reminder that it begins within. So for me, getting into my own body, right, in that first practice and opening up that space allowed some of that tension to be released so that I could feel my inner light again. And at that time, it was very, very dim, almost out. But just creating some space in my body allowed that light to come a little bit brighter, a little bit brighter. And then it continued to open and open. So, especially in our society that is very consumer based and very much like, what else can I do? What other books do I need? What courses can I take? Whatever it is. And these are all beautiful allies, of course. But my suggestion would be, don't worry. There's nothing outside of you that you need to do. There is nothing else you need to buy or achieve, but it begins within. So can you just take 2 minutes a day, start really small, really tangible,
Yes.
to place your hand on your heart when you first wake up in the morning, right? And just check in. Allow that peace to begin within. One of my favorite quotes, and I can't remember who said it, but we can never control what goes on outside of us, but we can always control what's going on inside of us and how we respond, right? So we live in some pretty crazy times, and it's easy for our peace to be hijacked, is the word that's coming through. So instead of relying on the outside world or anyone outside of you to give you peace, remember that peace begins within your own heart, your own body, your own breath. So go within, would be my advice.
Wonderful. And have you felt that your clients really respond to that? Or do you find that they come to you with resistance, and as they progress, that's when they find peace?
Yeah, beautiful question. My biggest heartfelt offering right now are these longer term spiritual mentorship containers, because I found that in a one-off Akashic record reading, so much would come up, and there would be all these light bulb moments, and then it was like, okay, session's over, best of luck,
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Right. So my soul was like, yeah, no, we need to hold this energy and hold this container for a longer amount of time. And so, yes, I find that most clients and mentorship clients come with resistance. They're coming with, I don't even know what my soul is, or I've never connected with my intuition. And you just don't think that you have. So yeah, definitely coming with resistance. And then we move through different modalities like the Akasha, like yoga, like journaling, like breath work, like meditation, so that you can start to come back into alignment. But this journey is not linear. So it's not like we move past the resistance, we find our soul, and we never have to do it again.
If it were that easy.
If it was that easy, right? But we're having a human experience. So we're going to have, coming full circle, we're going to have those ebbs and flows. But when we do the work, quote unquote, to connect with our soul, then when we have those ebbs, we can hold ourselves through them instead of abandoning ourselves or beating ourselves up over it or blaming other people. It's like, no, I trust the process. I'm going to hold myself through this ebb, and I'm going to trust that a flow is coming. So to answer your question, yeah, they definitely come with resistance. And we find moments of peace, right? Pockets of peace and presence. And we find that connection with our soul. We deepen the connection to the intuition. And then we're going to have an ebb. We're going to have a human moment. And it's like, how do I meet myself in those moments?
What has been the most poignant or your favorite part of your journey? And I know that people are like, favorite part of your journey, you're meeting a lot of ebbs and flows and resistance, but that's what strengthens and grows. So in your own personal journey, has there been like a poignant, pivotal moment, or are you, you've learned to trust the journey, so you have points where you're like, okay, I know what's going on. I can do this.
Yeah, beautiful question. The first thing that comes to mind actually is when I took my first solo trip to Costa Rica. And it was my first time traveling alone. It was my first time out of the country. It was my first spiritual women's retreat. And again, that ego flared up big time of like, oh, this is scary. This is really uncomfortable. Maybe I shouldn't go. Maybe I should try to bring a friend, all those stories. But my soul was like, lean in, lean in, lean in, lean into the fear, lean into the discomfort, lean into that edgy growth, leaving the comfort zone. And I did. And it was life-changing. And I don't say that lightly, because that is where I really cracked open on a whole new level, cracked open my heart to just live a more heart-centered life, live a soul-led life. That was when I really learned what it's like to hear the fear, but not give in to the fear, and the expansion that comes on the other side of that. And I came home from that retreat, honestly, a different person. And that's when I began to hold space on a deeper level. So that is coming to mind because, again, I was met with a lot of resistance, a lot of those inner stories, but I listened to my soul instead and was met with so much expansion on the other side. And it was just such a lesson for me of like, ego is going to want to keep you small because that's what's comfortable. But when you listen to your soul, you're going to find this beautiful expansion and this beautiful growth, which is why we're here on Earth.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that. And you carry that into your practice, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Living, these mentorships, these containers are all about coming home to that soul self so that you can then live in alignment with your soul, so that you can live from that space, because our soul is always, always guiding us. Our intuition is always, always guiding us, but are we listening? And so these containers really help us learn how to listen and how to fine tune that voice and how to allow that deepest part of ourselves to guide our journey.
Beautiful. And now these containers in these in the mentorship program that you are offering, is it limited to you? Because we only have a certain amount of actual energetic bandwidth as human beings.
Right.
So how long are they in? How often do you offer these?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I very much work in integrity. And I really pride myself on that, where I am not the type of person to just take as many clients as I can, because I know that, this is my soul's work, and my soul is only going to work with the amount of clients that I can support on the deepest level possible. So I only take about 2 to 3 clients at a time. 4 if I can, because these mentorships are either 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. So it kind of depends on who's coming in, who's coming out. But yeah, I do keep it limited for that exact reason, in that I want to be able to support you to the deepest, highest level. And in order for me to do that, I can only take so many clients at a time.
Okay. That's beautiful. And I'm very similar in that respect for what I mentor and coach in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, aside from that, how often do you teach like yoga and coming into that?
Yeah. So I love what you said before about just meeting people right where they are. And that's why I have lots of different offerings and ways for us to work together, because it's like, if you're not super ready to dive into a year-long mentorship, why don't you try one yoga class, right? So I teach 3 public yoga classes, community yoga classes a week. I'm on Long Island like you. I'm in Patchogue, so I teach locally out here. And then I also have a free Facebook group where I offer free guided meditations, sometimes yoga classes on Zoom, things like that. And then I love offering women's circles. That is a big, big just passion of mine, to bring women together and So I offer those once a month as well. It's called the Sacred Sister Circle. Those are offered on Zoom usually, just
Okay.
to give people options of like to dip your toes in and then see how you feel. And yeah.
So, where, if you're in the community of Patchogue or nearby Sayville, Kanakwa, what have you, and you're doing this community offering, where would people find you?
Yeah, I teach at Essence of Yoga Studio in Holbrook. It
Okay.
is such a beautiful, beautiful space. And otherwise, I teach on Zoom. So that way I can reach people wherever they are, even if they're not local or they don't want to drive to Holbrook. But really beautiful space.
Beautiful. So we'll put those links up later to reach you. And I want to say thank you for coming on and being a part of Unique Peace and sharing what brings you peace.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Janice. It was such a pleasure.
Yes, and I want to thank everybody who has joined us today, or if you're joining us in a rerun or repeat, thank you for taking the time to join us either way, and have a great day. And we will talk again soon.